What's going on, everybody? Today we have a brand new series starting here on the channel. It's actually a tactic series that is going to kind of walk you through how to utilize all the roles within your tactics. This is something I've been wanting to bring to you all for a while. I wasn't sure exactly how to go about it, but now I have definitely figured out how to go about it. And this is probably going to be one of the most in-depth videos that you have ever seen here on my channel. So, I guess without further ado, welcome to Tactic School. Today's class number 1, the art of the inverted wingback. So, how exactly is this going to work? Well, there are going to be steps to the video, which you can currently see on screen. I got them in front of me so I can read them off to you guys as well and kind of expound on it. So, the first thing we're going to be doing in these videos is breaking down the player role, especially if there are multiple different duties to that role, because obviously attack, support, and defend all operate differently. Then after that, we're going to head over to tacticalboard.com, which is one of my favorite tools to use when doing my tactics and my tactic videos. We're going to showcase how those roles are going to be performing for you. So how the attack role will work on a certain role, how support or defend will work on it as well. The third thing we're going to do is break down the stats from the testing. I've done 3 tests for each of the roles so that we kind of have a general feeling on how these roles will be able to produce within our sides. Then we have number 4, which is a very interesting one. I'm going to be looking at the numbers and relating them to other roles that this role could potentially replace within your tactic. And then finally, number 5, what tactics you are going to be able to use with this role in your side. So here we are with the role. What is an inverted wingback? An inverted wingback will function defensively much like a standard fullback or wingback. However, while a normal wingback will offer width to an attack, the inverted wingback, when he has a player ahead of him and where there are fewer than 2 defensive midfielders, will attempt to drift inside and create space for players around him. If there is no teammate ahead of him on his side of the pitch, then the inverted wingback will look to support attacks in a more traditional manner. When there is, he will look to affect the play in the middle of the pitch as much as possible. So right away, we can already tell with this role that there is a necessity to make sure that you aren't blocking what this role will be able to do for your side, especially I guess the best example for this is saying you have a winger and a wingback both on the right side. They're both going to be occupying that right side, and they both kind of do the same thing. They get into the same areas. It's just one is a defensive duty and one is an attacking duty. So you would want to make sure that at least on the winger, because nowadays you can have it cut inside, you will want it cut inside so that you can have that winger on attack and the wingback. So with the inverted wingback in the midfield area, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have whoever spot they are taking going forward. Because as we can see here with the attack duty, the inverted wingback aims to cut inside and adventurously support the attack by drifting inside from the flank or from a more central position depending on the system around him. Then with the support duty, the inverted wingback will look to cut inside with the ball and either drift inside from the flank or move into a more central position to support the play depending on the system around him. So kind of like the attacking one. But then we have the defend duty, and with the defend duty, the inverted wingback will hold his position and sit deeper whilst fulfilling his defensive responsibilities, either out wide or further inside the pitch depending on the system around him. So kind of think of them as kind of like a ball-winning midfielder or an anchor in a way. Now when we're looking at the attributes and you look at this is on currently the attacking duty, they are incredible playmakers. If you have someone that is a great playmaker, definitely try and utilize them as an inverted wingback on attack. You can see all the attributes that are important to them here in green and in blue. The blue is the secondary, but then you have the instructions that are automatically on there. The bright green is the one that I've selected, and then the kind of not so bright green, that is just what is already on the roll. So on an inverted wingback on attack, you've got that dribble more, cut inside with the ball, take more risks, cross less often, get further forward, sit narrower, and roam from position. Then we have the inverted wingback on support. Once again, you can see what is important to their role and what is kind of a secondary important role to the inverted wingback on support, and all that they have that is part of the role mandatory wise is cut inside with the ball, cross less often, sit narrower, and roam from position. So already we can see it is very different and kind of a little bit more stay at home than on the attack duty. And then we finally have that defend duty for the inverted wingback, and you can see with the important attributes and the secondary important attributes that They are kind of focused on playmaking, but also being defensively sound, and they need to be pretty smart players as well when you look at those mentals. But instruction wise, what is mandatory to be a part of the role is dribble less, cut inside with the ball, cross less often, hold position, and sit narrower. So how are all three of these roles going to be operating within your side? Well, over here on Tactical Board, we are going to start with the inverted wingback on attack, the Trent Alexander-Arnold role. He is here on the right side. Now, within his tactic, I needed to make sure that he was going to be able to cut inside and get forward, and that there was someone kind of occupying that space out wide. So this position right here, the right winger, is a winger on attack so that they can occupy the right side of the field, which allows Trent to drift inside about right here. Then we have got a central midfielder on attack, which will go up, allowing Trent to kind of do his job. But one thing about the inverted wingback on attack is that they don't just go to about right here in your midfield. They are willing to go all the way up in the attack when your team pushes. So this is kind of how it would be because of the roles that I ended up having within the tactic that they ended up performing in within the test. And you can see he's kind of a focal point of the system. He will be one of the main distributors within the side. However, in defense, he will still just operate normally as a wingback or fullback would at all times. The only time that he will be inverting is in attack to come into this midfield and be a part of that attacking movement. Next, we move on to the inverted wingback on support, which I tested with Freddie Kagioglou at Fenerbahce. How does he operate as an inverted wingback on support, as it is kind of a little bit of a safer type of style than the inverted wingback on attack? As you will see in a moment, numbers wise, it is pretty attacking. This is more so focused on being as balanced as they possibly can. So I still had a winger this time occupying the space out wide to allow Ferdy to cut inside. Same with a central midfielder going forward. So he still was able to cut inside. However, he's not going to be like Trent and pushing way up the field. He's going to be right around here. This central midfielder will go here, him about here, right there, cut in, overlap, push up. Same with the central defenders, and he's going to kind of be a little bit more of a balanced playmaker than an aggressive playmaker like Trent was. And once again, he would still defend just like Trent would in a normal system as if they operated like wingbacks or fullbacks. Now we move on to the inverted wingback on defend duty, and this was the one that was going to be a little bit tricky to figure out because there aren't too many players that are truly suited to playing as an inverted wingback on defend. So that's where I found my man, Mr. Reece James. Reece James is actually pretty good at playing as an inverted wingback on defend. He fits kind of all the, he kind of fits every attribute that I needed, especially the mentals. So how does the inverted wingback on defend operate? Because it is going to be much more stay-at-home defensive minded than the other two, especially the attack duty. So I still had a winger operating on the outside space so that he could cut inside once again. However, both midfielders are going to be going up this time, and it's going to kind of create a formation like this because due to it being on the defend duty, I mentioned earlier, it kind of operates like a ball-winning midfielder or an anchor in a way. So they are going to be sitting deeper. It is a safer play to use an inverted wing back on defend. And if you have someone that isn't really great playmaking or goal contribution wise in general, because inverted wing backs on attack, as you'll see in a moment, they do tend to score some goals, the inverted wing back on defend is definitely the route to go. So now we're going to be going over the numbers from each test. I did 3 different tests with all 3 players, and it will say season results. Each season that it says it is just a separate test. So keep that in mind. It's not like concurrent testing like 3 years. It is test 1, test 2, test 3. Now, how did he perform over the 3 tests? We're going to see the 3 different seasons or the 3 different tests, and then there will be an average of all of it as well. So we can kind of see on average what an inverted wingback on attack, especially by an elite player, is capable of doing. So in the first test, the numbers absolutely blew me away. He had 7 goals, but he contributed with 39 assists, which is absolutely crazy numbers by any wingback, fullback, and especially an inverted wingback. You look at the progressive passes, and he's just absolutely out of this world. You look at the expected assists, expected goals, everything, he is in the elite of the elite tier performance-wise, as this is all in relation to the wingback and fullback roles. This is how he stacks up against the rest of them, which I actually ended up looking to see how he would stack up against central midfielders, defensive midfielders, and attacking midfielders, and each time he is basically performing at their level or surpassing their level. So the inverted wingback on attack, I can already tell, that's the real deal here. So we now move on to test number 2. How did he do in test 2? He ended up having 6 goals and 25 assists. So he kind of dropped off, but we can still see here on the graph that he is just completely blowing away everyone, especially in the playmaking department. He's still contributing pretty well in the defensive department as well, even though he is on an attacking duty. And then we move on to test number 3. Test number 3 is where he really showed up goal scoring wise. He ended up having 10 goals and 16 assists. So you can see that the inverted wingback on attack, when it feels like it, they're going to contribute not only assist wise, but goal wise as well. As we can see, for wingbacks and fullbacks, he is in the elite of the elite tier when it comes to goal scoring contributions, whether that be him scoring the goal or getting an assist. Now here is the average results. Everything I kind of added up, divided, did all that good fun numbers nerdy stuff, and everything is on an average of a per 90-minute basis. So that is how you should look at this. Everything is per 90 minutes above the average results portion, because those goals and the assists, that is kind of what they would average on a season as an inverted wingback on attack, especially at an elite level. So goal wise, 7.7, assists 26.7. That is fantastic contributions from any area of the pitch. But looking at his playmaking numbers, the progressive passes, the dribbles, the passes completed as well, those are fantastic. He's almost averaging half an assist a game, which is amazing. And being an inverted wingback, fullback area in general, almost averaging 0.2 goals a game is fantastic. Now the defensive area, this is where he was kind of lacking, even though it did stack up in the graphs, making it look like he was doing absolutely fantastic, which he was to an extent. He definitely still had some areas where he can improve as a player and with the attack duty on. So if you are looking for someone who is really good at progressing the ball up the field, creating chances for your side, the inverted wingback on attack is definitely going to be the one to do. However, if you're looking for the defensive aspect of the game to be included in it, you might want to look at the other 2 roles. And that first role that we're going to look at out of the other 2 is the support role, which was with Ferdi Kagioğlu of Fenerbahce. So in test number 1, he ended up scoring 2 goals and getting 16 assists. But you can look at those progressive pass numbers. You thought that Trent's were impressive. His are even better, and he is completing more dribbles and had a better pass completion as well. And I mean, 16 assists, it's not the 39 assists that we got in that first test from Trent, but I mean, Ferdi is still doing very well. And you look at the possession lost and won, you can already see he is winning back possession more than he is losing it, whereas on the attack duty, he was losing it more than he was winning it. Now we move on to test 2. He scored 1 less goal but had 10 more assists, doing absolutely fantastic once again with those dribbles, the progressive passes, still up there at 86% passes completed. And this time he did lose slightly more possession than he did win, but I mean, a majority of the time, if he loses the ball, he's going to win it back. That's kind of how you have to look at that. But his tackle percentage right there is 81%. That's absolutely fantastic. And expected assists, he's almost at half an assist a game. And now season 3, this is once again the season where he decided to score more goals. 5 goals, 15 assists overall. A little bit less of the progressive passes, but still basically one of the most elite players in the world with progressive passes. One of the best in dribbles. Passes completed went up to 87%. Possession lost, still, once again, lower than possession one. So he's winning possession more than losing it. Tackle percentage did end up going down this time, and the expected assists did as well, being that he achieved less assists this time around than the other two. But looking at the average results from the 3 tests, averaging 2.7 goals per season and 19 assists per season from the inverted wingback on support duty. So pretty good with contribution wise. Now, looking at the progressive passes, dribbles, all the playmaking stats right there, he is definitely up there with the inverted wingback on attack in what Trent was able to do. XG, though, much lower than what the inverted wingback on attack duty was doing. However, most definitely makes up for it in the defensive aspects, with the possession lost in 1, the tackles 1, pressures, which that is for gegenpressing tactics. He was definitely doing better, I would say, in the possession lost and tackles area than the inverted wingback on attack. Over the inverted wingback on attack being more aggressive, definitely better for a gegenpressing style. But the inverted wingback on support, if you're looking for balance and still a great role to help you playmaking wise and move your side up the pitch, this is definitely one to utilize. And now we're on the final duty, the defend duty, which we tested with Mr. Reece James with Chelsea. And I was kind of surprised with the numbers that this was putting up from a defend duty. So with the defend duty, we can see he's still going to contribute goal wise as well in the assist department, 2 goals and 8 assists. But you look at that graph and it tells a story that is just absolutely fantastic. You look at the progressive passes, it is almost up there with what the support and attack duty are doing. Not so much in the dribbles, but the progressive passes, it's definitely up there in the elite category. You look at the passes completed, that is probably the most impressive. 88% passes completed. You definitely want, if there is a player on a defend duty, to have a high success rate when it comes to moving the ball within your side. And at 88%, that is pretty nice. And on this defend duty, he is going to kind of play more like a ball-winning midfielder or an anchor, maybe even sometimes like a halfback. But the expected assists at 0.27 per match, that is still fairly good. And you look at those pressures attempted, tackles 1, the possession lost compared to 1. That is absolutely amazing. If you were looking for a more defensive style, this is definitely going to be the role for you. Now in test 2, he ended up having 1 goal and 12 assists. So they are capable of producing some pretty decent assist numbers. Once again, progressive passes, kind of the same. Dribbles got better. Passes completed, still absolutely elite. And that possession lost is still lower than the possession won, which is exactly what we want. And the tackles won percentage, 77%. I believe last time it was around 71. However, this time around, the pressures attempted were a little bit lower. Now, with test 3, 1 goal and 11 assists. Once again, double-digit assists from a role that you wouldn't really think you're going to get those double-digit assist numbers from. The progressive passes and passes completed percentage still very high up there. I mean, completing a little over 60 passes a game is absolutely fantastic at an 87% completion rate. The expected assists still up there in the elite category, and the possession lost, once again, for the 3rd time running, lower than possession won, and tackles won percentage-wise at 82% this time. So this role's absolutely fantastic defensively. So, getting on to the average results. Overall, how does it stack up to the other two? Goal-wise, 1.33 and assists 10.33 over a season. That is pretty solid from a defensive duty. You look at the progressive passes and the playmaking role. Now you look at the progressive passes and the playmaking stats right there. Very, very solid. Exactly what you want from a player. It offers balance as well as creativity from a defensive role. The XG, not really to be worried about. We're not really looking for them to contribute goal scoring wise. However, with the assists, it's definitely going to make up for that. Now, looking at the defensive numbers, the possession won over lost is key. He is always going to be winning the ball more than he is losing it, which is exactly what you want in your players. You don't want someone coughing up the ball 17 times a game and only winning it back 7. You want someone who coughs up the ball maybe 10 times, but they win it back 15 times. And when it comes to pressures in a gegenpressing style, this might be the way to go, unless with the gegenpressing you're looking for your inverted wingback to attack, then probably go with the attacking duty. But defensively, with that pressures attempted and pressures completed, it's definitely better than support duty. All right, so role-wise, what am I gonna kind of be comparing these two that they could potentially replace? I've already mentioned some of them, actually. Now, the inverted wingback on attack, I would say, could replace a role like an advanced playmaker or a deep line playmaker. The playmaking roles, it can most definitely do the job of while contributing in the goal department as well. So that advanced playmaker, deep line playmaker, roaming playmaker, it can definitely do the job of those. When it comes to that inverted wingback on support, I would kind of say it can do the same thing with replacing that advanced playmaker, the deep line playmaker, roaming playmaker. However, I do think it could also do a job like the ball winning midfielder, but be a little bit more creative. Now, with the inverted wingback on defend, this is going to be pretty different from the other two, as the inverted wingback on defend is going to be sitting around here when it inverts and around here in the attacking area. So roles that it could potentially replace for you: the deep line playmaker on defend, definitely one of those roles. However, you're going to want to make sure that that player has incredible playmaking ability. It can 100% replace a defensive midfielder or even a ball winning midfielder, maybe even the anchor. The only one I don't think that it can really replace is the halfback, because that halfback likes to drop in between the central defenders. So that is the one thing that the inverted wingback on defend really can't do. So these first four right here, the anchor, ball winning midfielder, deep line playmaker, and defensive midfielder, it can 110% do the job of all four of them. So when creating tactics and utilizing the inverted wingback, keep in mind you can replace all those roles that I just mentioned with an inverted wingback, which in turn allows you to use other roles that are pretty overpowered, like a central midfielder on attack, or even a mezzala. Alright, so now, really quickly, gonna be going over some tactics that you can utilize with these roles within them, mainly formations. With the inverted wingback on attack, the one that I kind of suggest over anything else, and the one that you will get the most out of them with, is the 4-3-3. Think of how Liverpool play. That is the style that you are going to want to play when you are using an inverted wingback. A 4-3-3 gegenpress. It is going to just change your world using an inverted wingback on attack within that. Now, the inverted wingback on support probably has the most versatility to it on systems that you can utilize it in. All of them are 4 in the back systems. All these I'm about to mention actually are 4 in the back systems between all three roles. So 4-3-3, once again, you can utilize it a little bit of a safer approach instead of the attack approach. Then you have the 4-2-3-1. You can definitely utilize it within a 4-2-3-1. A 4-4-2 even if you're wanting your central midfielders to be a little bit more attacking. You have one maybe be a little bit more defensive, but you have that inverted wingback on support cut in and become a part of that midfield. Then you have the 4-2-2, or you can call it a 4-2-4. You can also utilize them within a system like that. Now, when it comes to the defend duty, there are two that I think you would absolutely reign supreme with. Once again, the 4-3-3, but also once again, the 4-4-2. I think an inverted wingback on the defend duty and a 4-4-2 would be absolutely unbelievable for your side. Say you're rocking an inverted wingback on defend on the right, an inverted wingback on support on the left. You have two central midfielders on attack, allowing them to move forward, and those inverted wingbacks cut in centrally. Your side might be able to just absolutely dominate your opponent by doing that. So that right there, those are my tactic and formation recommendations when utilizing an inverted wingback. Well, there is the end of class number 1 with the art of the inverted wingback. I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I've got more planned in the future. The next, moving on to the midfield. instead of another defensive role. So we'll be doing the central midfielder in the next video. And if you have enjoyed today's video, please feel free, like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, as you will get notified when I have videos coming out, and you'll get notified when the central midfielder version of this comes out, which should hopefully be next week. But right now on screen, I'll be popping up my most recent tactic video that I have done, and on the other side, I will be popping up a playlist of all the tactics that I've done this year so far within FM24. But until next time, everyone, have a good one. Bye-bye.